live. We are live. You know, I'm trying to be very punctual. It's 5 p.m. Girl, thank you for adjusting. Everybody, look, this is my best friend, my childhood best friend. Her name is Liz, a.k.a. Elizabeth Williams. I first met her when she was a Taurus. But we'll talk about that later. Man, Liz, thank you so much for allowing me to honor you this day. I just wanted to highlight, as I'm closing out season 3 of They Took My Choice Away Survivor Series. It's been 3 years that the broadcast has been on. And I have faithfully been to thank you. I've faithfully been doing an episode every month. Regardless of my, you know what I mean, how if I'm struggling mentally or whatever, there was something excuse me, I had to be dedicated to. And so, before I even continue to introduce you, I want to, for some reason, I have to go into my personal page and make it public. It does not allow me to do this like automatically. The only platform that it streams to that it streams publicly without me having to adjust it is YouTube. So I have no idea why. So right now, people are probably can't even see it. So 1 second. My privacy. There we go. So now you can share it to your page so that everybody that's following you can see the broadcast. Um, I'm gonna pin this post, so this is the only thing they see when they come across my page. And then let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. I shared
All
it.
right. So I know that thing says 2 p.m. The whole post said 2 p.m., but I had to. Oh well, I had to adjust that. So, let me just update you on Tierra. We thought we had a scare because we thought that her water broke. You know what I mean? And so we went to the ER.
Oh
We
God.
checked in, and they were like, "There's still plenty of fluid there, but you are dilating." So, so we're hoping that in the next couple of days, she actually has the baby. Can Okay, so if those of you who are tuning in, listen, she is my kid's godparent and one of the godparents.
God.
And she did the privilege of, man, stepping up, and she's like, yeah, I'm be everybody's godparent, a godmother.
Yeah, my
So
baby.
we come with a big history, a beautiful history. I mean, that's how I see it. I see it as a beautiful sisterhood. Not only as a friendship, I consider you my, my sister. Um, so I think you surprised me on your 40th birthday when you told me I was a sister to you. So I'm about to cry just thinking about it.
Don't
um,
do that.
I'm trying, and you know what? I'm trying not to, but I was so emotional. Like I was telling you as I was preparing for just our episode, I was crying, and they were like, people who are tuning in, they're probably thinking like, crying about what? But friendships are so important. Friendships in someone's life, it's either gonna friendships in someone's life could literally save a person's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about who's in your life and says, I'm here for you. Friends wipe your tears. Friends are there for you through the highs and lows. And that's us.
That is us. Um, I want to start from the beginning. I really wanted to highlight people who meant the world to me and who is in my immediate circle that I consider my immediate circle. There's so many times where I'm like, I'm all we're doing is constantly working our platform and putting out content and all that, but nobody really knows the behind scene, like who is supporting this person. And I just wanted to take the time out to really highlight who was important. Last what was it? Today's Wednesday. So last Saturday I had Talik on, and if it wasn't for his story and me watching and viewing his story, where the title of "They Took My Choice Away" Survivor Series came out to be, he inspired that whole movement for me.
Yeah.
Just by his story. So all I wanted to do was replicate that, for the world to see. And I've They Took My Choice Away Survivor Series has branched out to the Netherlands, to South Africa. And so our platform is growing as people, as I come across people who is in pursuit of the same thing. And so you and I, we are bonded by a sisterhood like no other, in my opinion. I have never felt this way with anyone else before. I can call somebody. I have probably another person that I would consider a best friend, but she's also a coach, like my my poetry coach. So there's parts of me that I feel like, okay, that's strictly just me and her thing, and then there's pretty much everything about me that's you. And so you're like my forever bestie. It'll always be that way. We have not only just a divine connection, but it was on purpose. And when we unwrap this thing, I hope people will understand the real true meaning of what friendship really is. And is there anything you want to add to this before I start going in?
I just want to say that having good friends who
Hmm.
love and support you for who you are is really important for your happiness, because they're friends that we consider friends that will drain you, that are only for a season, that are only for a reason, that are only, there for, like you said, you have, a friend coach for certain things. But if a friend is not contributing to your happiness, it's time to go. I learned how to isolate myself away from people that, if it's a bunch of junk and a drama, I can't do that. So
Likewise, and I think it took a process for me to stop being a people pleaser, which I have talked about that numerous times of how I even got to where I was, why I continue to kind of like circle back into the same toxic relationships, because that was kind of like home for me, you know. And then you realize you finally do get tired of it, you know what I mean? But it's not really until then where you actually do something about it. Like you really have to get to a point where you're just sick and tired of feeling and being abused and emotionally drained by narcissistic people, toxic people, until you actually get to that point of, nah, I have to choose me, and we don't subliminally say that, but it's back there. When we finally get a backbone, it looks a whole lot different.
right,
And
it's a good
then it
abusive
looks like,
relationship. It's
it,
definitely like abusive relationship. So
it
here it is.
is.
We're in it. Oh, but we go out to eat together. Oh, we go out to club. Well, we go here together. We vacation together. We go on trips together. Let it go. Let it
What does
go.
that mean? My cutoff game is so on point these days that
Mine
it
too.
makes people look at me like, okay, you're different. No, I've just had to choose boundaries. Like you don't really realize the things that you say, the things that how you go about things. How when I try to tell my story, you got a better story to tell. Like you know what I mean? It gets so ridiculous that I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
can't even say something.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like I can't even say something without they having the top whatever it is I'm saying. Like it's so ridiculous.
That competition is unhealthy, and
That's
it's
what
it's
it is.
dangerous. It's
It is.
dangerous. I
It
always
is.
say being a great friend to someone is
Mhm.
having friends to support you,
That's right.
and it support you, and bring that happiness. That's good for your well-being.
Yeah.
Someone who's toxic, someone who's jealous, someone who's
Mhm.
competing with you, that affects your health, and
That's
I'm
right.
not going to be stressed.
No, not at this age.
No. You s-
Not at this
Kevin,
age.
my husband always says, "Oh my God, you could just cut somebody off and not even, and
Period.
pretend they don't exist." Absolutely.
Right.
Because I'm not, my mental health is not going to be affected because somebody wants to, be, no, I'm just not dealing with it. You okay?
I am. So when somebody calls, that's what happens, you
Oh,
know?
oh,
So
can you put your
yeah, they're
phone on
just
do not disturb? I mean, I don't know how
so
that
if
works.
I don't know how to do that. Isn't
Uh,
that crazy? I've had this phone forever and I don't know how to do that.
oh,
So just bear with me because it's probably going to happen a few more times, but just bear with me.
that's
I'll
okay.
stop every time if I see it. So I have been friends with you since I was 12 years old.
Yay. Yep.
Yep, we were in middle school. Mhm. And so by the time we reached high school, we both were pregnant.
10th grade for me.
Yeah, 10th grade for you, ninth grade for me. We ended up getting pregnant. And so I remember our in our high school, it seemed like to be a thing, right? There was a bunch of teenage pregnancies in that. But one thing I can remember that I absolutely appreciate our school having a support system in place. We don't talk about that enough. And I don't know if there are schools out there that did this, but when we were growing up, that was all the support that we had because I certainly didn't. I had support at home, but the support that I had was just I had a roof over my head, and I was lucky if I had a conversation out of my, out of my father. And so, we're gonna get into you, but I know you didn't have much of support system. You had your father, but then he was also away. He was in Puerto Rico, and then all right, we're just gonna get into it. But that in itself, like our school had a school for pregnant teens, and all you had to do was go to school, and they would transport you and your baby to school. So I took advantage of that. And then once I kind of like was able to, secure babysitting and all that other stuff, then I was able to go back to school after I had the child. Right. And so I just appreciate that they had that available for us. And then they also had that group that we had to do.
Yes.
And there was people in there we did not get along with. But you know what brought us together was our stories.
Absolutely. And every time I seen the two women that put that together, um I always thank them. So they knew that we appreciated that group because
We
that
needed it.
we needed it. It was so good for our mental health, and it was so good for resources. It was so good for so many things. Getting out of class. But it
You
was
did
so
get out. Yes, yes. I mean, that was always an added win for us. But it was a chance for us, and the people that I wouldn't be like at least cordial with. That group helped us kind of bond together because we all had a common thing. We all lacked support. We all, in some way, we all had an upbringing that was hard. I remember very vividly when you shared in the group, and you just said you had, and I had not known because I guess it must have just happened where you had to make a decision to send your son with your father in Puerto Rico just to make things light for you. Because let me tell you about how she was. Not only did she go to school, but she also worked. We were young, right? And if tell me if I'm wrong, were you living by yourself at this point?
at
Your dad
16
had
I
left
was
you
paying for a
his
mortgage.
house,
Yep, at
right?
16 I was paying a mortgage.
She was paying a mortgage at 15. So that means you also worked. So you went to school full time. You were working, I believe, as many hours as you could at age 15, 16 years old, right?
Yep, and also I had to pay for a babysitter when I went to school and a babysitter while I worked. But the lady that babysat my son was amazing because she didn't charge me that much.
I just want everybody let's run that story back again because I don't think people understand, You were living by yourself at what age?
16. 16 with a
That you
baby.
had to pay for the mortgage,
Mhm.
knowing your dad
My
is all the
dad,
way in Puerto Rico.
yeah. So what happened was my dad had some medical issues that
Hmm.
prevented him from work. Like he was disabled. He was able to, get a little bit money for that, but he had to work in order to support us. When when he had health conditions that prevented him from working, he didn't have that income no more, so he could not afford life. So he decided to go to Puerto Rico, and he thought that I was going to go with him. So he bought the tickets and everything, packed up the house, everything. And I was like, this is my last year of school. I'm not going. So that was that.
Where the balls?
Just give me a second. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So, 16 years old, you're living on your own. You have to pay for a mortgage. You also have to go to school. But that doesn't end there. Yes, you had to pay for a babysitter. So, you are already adulting at a teenage life. You're already adulting. But you didn't even have a car. So how were you getting back and forth to school, to work, to
I
the
walked.
sitters?
I walked everywhere. I
You
walked
did.
everywhere.
You
And
did.
here it is, I would get off at 11, 12 o'clock. By the time I would go to the babysitter and get the baby and come, home, it'd be 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to sit there and do my homework and to bathe my child, to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to prepare.
To start all over
And
again.
I'll tell you what, even though I was a mom and I went through all of that, I still maintain my honor roll. I was honor roll at all 4 years in high school.
So me seeing this, right? Because I would have to get dropped off at your house just to sing it, just to hang out with you. And
Okay.
so I never told my parents you were out on your own. I never did that. I never did that. That was our little secret because back then, like you couldn't tell too much of anything because you know we would be having to deal with child and diapers and all that other stuff. So listen, I just never said anything. So my parents never knew. But when you got that car, that Thunderbird, right? I mean, that was what it was called. It made things so much lighter, right?
Yes.
So at least you were able to get around and all that other stuff. And then we was it. No.
Well, I did have Kevin. He
Oh,
I
okay.
met him, and he was like, he was so helpful, and he took
Okay.
over the babysitting and all of that. So he was
Okay.
very
All
helpful.
right. So I didn't know that.
Yes.
But I knew that he was. Oh, are you getting a call too?
No.
Okay, no. Yeah. Hi, David. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, so I've been so the whole time in our relationship, I have been watching you, right? And then I pulled a lot of strength from you, and I started to gain, some sense of okay, because now I'm pregnant. You were helping me through that. Like, I had a lot of questions and then we were just growing up together with our kids, like you helped me with sitting and you seem to always have, because you had that support with Kevin, you always seem to have, you gave me most of the support, to be honest with you. I don't feel like it was that you ever needed me at any point in time. If you asked me to be somewhere, what I did was I showed up. Like I felt
Listen,
like you were
you
my
don't
bigger sister.
downgrade that, because although it seemed like, oh, she's the support system, the encouraging words, the hello, the smiles, because you got to remember, I was 15. I was
Yeah.
15 when I had my child. So a lot of my friends, their parents did not want me around because I was the little fast girl. I was, so it made me feel like I couldn't be around. So I just,
Mm.
there's a lot of things that I went through, but here it is. My foundation, strength. My mother was very
Mhm.
strong. My father
Mhm.
was very strong, and people told me I was going to fail. My own grandmother came to the hospital, and she said, my grandmother worked at the hospital, and she said to me in my face, "You cannot take care of that baby, so you need to leave that baby here." I called security so fast. Yes. But and then years later, my son, my child, is like the best thing for everyone in the family. They forgot how I was treated.
So not only were you going through uh um you were going through a, I don't care what anybody call that, you call that, I thought that was a crisis. You was going through a crisis, because even in the midst of all of that and you being strong and you doing what you were supposed to, because I, at that point, I think you and I both believe, like, this is my bed, and this is my bed and I lied in it, so now I have to, I have to get up and make up my bed. I think we came from an aura where we just took responsibility.
That's
You know what
it.
I mean? We made the mistake. Okay, okay. People got on us for that. People were concerned that we weren't going to persevere and move on, but yet that's what drove me. I'm going to prove to you. And now like me proving to my dad that I wasn't going to be a failure, that I was going to graduate, that I was going to be, I was going to be I might not be the expectation he wanted me to be, but I was going to be somebody, something, someone, something to someone,
Right.
um what people don't also may not even know, that you were also going through an abusive relationship with your son's father.
Yes.
And while I was dealing with somebody that was cheating on me, you were dealing with something much more on a bigger scale that I have never seen. And I don't think, honestly, I can't say that I ever seen that before. I just remembered one time you guys were going at it, and you was tearing this kid up. You was tearing him up on the sidewalk, like y'all were walking away from school. Like school had ended, and and I said, "Get in the car." I got out. He's like, "Dad." I was like, "Dad, just stop. Just stop. And let me grab her." I got out of the van. I said, "Just get in the car. Get in the car. Get in the car. Get in the car, Liz. Get in the car." You finally got in the car. We took you home. And I just didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. Like, this was
So
really happening.
right. So here it is in my family. I've seen domestic violence. I even intervened and, whatever. So I always said that's never going to be me. Although I was fighting, although I can beat him, although, it was still domestic violence. And I didn't realize that in the moment.
Sure.
So, although we don't see it,
Right.
it happens. And I have
Mhm.
some statistics from the National Coalition Against
I
Domestic
love that.
Violence
Mhm.
that it happens in schools. So parents of teenage kids, I'm going to say boys, girls, because it happens. So I'm going to say nearly 20.9% of female high school students and 13.4 of male high school students report being physically or sexually abused by a dating partner. High school. Okay, nearly 1.5 million high school students in the United States are physically abused by dating partners every year. A 2013 study of 10th graders found that 35% had been either physically or verbally abused. 31% were perpetrators of physical and verbal abuse. 2014 study, 10% of teenage students in dating relationships were coerced, I can never say that word,
Mhm.
into
Coerced.
sexual intercourse in the previous year.
Mm.
Only 33% of teenage dating abuse victims ever told anyone. 33%. That ain't even half. So everybody keeps it a secret like I did. And
Mm.
then 50% of youth reporting dating violence and rape also attempted suicide. So we have to look at our youth. We have to be involved. We have to ask questions.
Yeah.
Where that bruise come from? Why are
Mhm.
you isolated? What's
Right.
going on?
Mhm.
Because it happens
It
so
really does.
often. And I thank God for the teachers that are aware.
Mhm.
I thank God for them calling whoever they needed to call. I
Mhm.
thank God for my job calling,
Mm.
because for me, I would call and I got no results. Mind you, here it is. A lot of people don't understand that, they're just like, oh, well, why don't you leave, or, whatever. You're in survival mode,
That's
because they're
right.
telling you they're going to kill you. So, yeah, 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 I'll call you later. Yeah, 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 we're going to be together. That is survival, because I
Mhm.
was threatened.
Yeah.
I was threatened with the most craziest things. And there's some things that happened that I would never speak upon, because I just can't, in my mind, I can't just grasp how someone could be so evil.
Mm.
But I'll say that to say, National Domestic Violence Hotline, if you're experiencing domestic violence, it's 1-800-799-7233. I always give that number. And because that happened to me,
That's right.
I work with domestic violence. I
Mm.
say survivors because they've survived.
Mhm.
So when people question, oh, well, for me, I had my brother. My brother almost murdered him. My
Mhm.
dad had, I could talk about it now because he's no longer here, but he had a gun under his
Mhm.
pillow. I didn't want my family to be,
Right.
um, in prison, so I kept a lot of it secret, and I dealt with a lot of it myself. But
There are things I don't know.
right, right.
Yeah.
So it definitely, yes. So on top of everything that I was going through, I had to deal with that. And it was, and
That was heavy.
yeah,
I don't
very
I don't
heavy.
think I don't think you know. Go ahead. I don't think you know how well, you do know how strong you are. You prove it to yourself every day. Every time I'm talking to you, you already enrolled into a whole nother class, another another school. You know what I mean? You I'm like, dang, how many degrees this girl gonna get? But you have put off and put off and put off and put off, and now that your kids were adults, then you was just like, no, it's me time. It's me. I'm trying, and I know that helps with your mental health. But you put on a lot that I don't think I know anybody that could top what you do as a person individually. But that comes from our background in trauma. Like, we're always having to do something to feel complete. And I know that you're doing it for other reasons, to be more financially stable as you're getting older, and so on and so forth. But all I know is that I took a lot of my cues in life because of you. I, I, I You were my teacher.
Well, also I'll
We
say
weren't
this.
lifelong friends, but you were my teacher.
And also,
You were my
here it is. I had to learn young. So here it is. I had to be, they say a parent, because my dad was a single father. I was 10. So he was going at work. So I had to, clean up, and we would go grocery shopping. So, he taught me how to pay the bills, and I had to interpret for him, be an interpreter, and,
Mhm.
sign those car loan
Hey,
papers and the mortgage. I was there, so I learned all of that young. How to write a check, how to get a money order. So it was a good thing, but sometimes I'm like, wow, like, did I get enough playtime?
girl. I know a lot of people, like, well, not even a lot of people, but that I don't think the anyone would understand our friendship, because we can go like days, months, you know what I mean, without having, we're just allowing life to kind of distance us. But when we do get back together, it's almost as if nothing ever changed. Nothing changed. Everything feels safe. Everything feels just like it was when I left it. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree, but I know that's the way I feel when it comes to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So here it is, how many years was I in school? That's a heavy load. Like
Yeah.
I'm working, school, I started school in the middle of my taking care of my dad, and then he was on
Mhm.
hospice and I was going to quit, but I was just, here it is, my
Mhm.
support system. They was like, "No, you can't quit." So I kept on going and going and going, and but I'm a good student. Like I I need the good grades, and I'm going to push, and that paper is going to be perfect. And, so
Yeah.
I indulge myself in
Mhm.
school, and I want to do good things. So now I'm out of school. We were in COVID, and I'm out of school. And then I had some health challenges that I was just like, you know what? I just need to sit back and just figure this thing out. And,
Mhm.
I mean,
And you did.
and I did.
And you did. So, um, I know that it was okay. So let's just kind of wrap up. I know it was hard when you shared about having to have your son go to Puerto Rico, so that you could work things out on this end. And how long did that take from you being separated from him?
So I was it was of course people talk, family talk, so they were calling my dad and just telling my dad that it was seemed like it was hard for me, so he sent me tickets to go to Puerto Rico to stay, one way ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And I went because I wanted to see my dad. And when I was there, I realized that he was planning for me to stay. And I was just like, I'm not staying here. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, what you can do though is help me with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in November, and my son was back probably the end of March. That was the hardest
Mm-hmm.
thing ever. I talked to him every day,
Mm-hmm.
but that was the hardest thing that I had to do. But I knew that he was in really good hands, and I needed to graduate. So when I got
Mm-hmm.
to the point where it was just like, and I couldn't even leave school, like I couldn't even take the time off to go get him. That's what took me so long,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just kind of like, it's my senior year, I have to finish. So my aunt went and got him. And, I mean, from there, I had my support system because Kevin was there. He was out of the service. He was reserved, so he was just like, him and his family were wonderful, and they helped me. And I had friends too that were like, "Hey, just leave him here," and so I did have a support system, and they helped me through that, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. But yeah, that
I
was
know you
hard.
are. I know you are. And that's the whole point of this whole live is to show what support really looks like. I'm constantly highlighting, a person's story, but I never want to only just concentrate on what the trauma was. I always want to concentrate on where is this person at now. You know what I mean? Where in their life is it? And I hardly ever have anybody on that's not complete, that's not healed from their trauma and not doing something, you know, um, as a result of their trauma. So um, that's not what this is about. This was about showing what support looks like. And thank you for highlighting in your life who your support system was. And that's why you were able to be successful. And all the naysayers and all the people that, even in your family, you know what I mean, that you probably don't even talk to now, because you've had to put up boundaries. All the things, negative things that they said about you and your family, and that it didn't stop you. It
Mm-mm.
got you where you needed to be. You did exactly what you said you were going to accomplish and more. So I
Absolutely.
commend you. Giving you your flowers, girl. You deserve it.
Tell you, life is hard, but that's
It
my
is.
motivation. That's my, so here it is. I fought hard for everything. No one
You
has given
did.
me nothing. I tell my children, I said, you know what, if I needed gas money, I needed to
Mhm.
budget, because I didn't have anybody that I could say, hey, give me $20 or whatever.
Right.
I had to make it. And it
Mm-hmm.
and we're here. We
You
are
are.
here. And, I want to say that my children, although, here it is, I
Mm-hmm.
always highlight this because I was 15 with a baby.
Mm-hmm.
But my 15, when I was 15, but my son is 33 now with a double master's and working on some other things. Awesome. Awesome, awesome young man. That definitely was God. I always say that was
Mm-hmm.
God because that child, whew, he loves the Lord.
Well, he got his strength from you, honey. He had an example. He knew what you were the example for him. There's so many parents or even friends that I know as parents that they are regretful for the way that they were. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean, like or they weren't an example. And then henceforth, their kids are in jail right now, because they weren't the example. And so
Right.
you set the bar high with him, because you felt like you had to, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
everybody had a low bar for you. Like they didn't expect nothing from you, but when you had yours, and you know what I mean, like you set the bar. Like, no, you were encouraging them. You made sure that you supported them in the way that matter of fact, you were your kids, you were the parent that you needed when your kids came.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I want to highlight my daughter also. I was 21 when I had her, so there was 6 years apart, and
Hmm.
it looked different because here it is, father in
Established.
the life, and so sometimes I don't think she understands the what I went through with with my son, but they're both great kids, and yes, I am that parent that I needed. But
Hmm.
that also, made me so strong. Like, I think that drove me because I've
Hmm.
seen a lot of my friends that had children and they had, mom and dad babysat and they had them on their health insurance and, all that stuff. And, they didn't have to work and I had to buy everything. I had to go get milk and Pampers and, I'm walking, carrying this stuff with a child in the stroller. Like, that, but I just wouldn't change it because I think about those days and I'm like, you know what, that really made me believe, because I know I was out there like, all right, if there is a God, he's gonna get me through this because I can't do this.
Yeah.
I was talking to God so at a young age, and but
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm alive. I am, oh my God, I'm loving life. My children make me happy. My husband makes me happy. Like, I am traveling and just, enjoying life. And I'm not going to, 21, I was so driven and motivated. At 21, I purchased my home. So I'm almost done paying for my
Whoa, that's enough to celebrate right there.
yes, do the
Like a
dance.
praise break. Oh my God, that's awesome. But you worked really hard. Both you and your husband have worked really hard. And Liz, I can't ever really remember you ever in my entire life of knowing you ever asked for anything.
I never asked anybody for
You
anything.
haven't. You haven't needed that. And so, and that's a testament to, you know God, like God showing up in your life where you didn't need to do
Absolutely.
that, giving you over
Absolutely.
and beyond, you know what I mean, and being able to, so that you're able to give to others, and you were a giver,
Still are.
girl.
But it's so crazy because in my conversations with God, I never really asked anybody for anything, but when I need it, it was there. And people were there. He put people in my life that, when I needed something, it was just like, I always want to highlight, family. When I was going through a tough time, whoo,
Mhm.
my family pulled it together, but I mean, I just I sit here and always think of, because I graduated and I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting to, and I even went to college afterwards. But I did a year and I was like, I need to work and I need to,
Mhm.
make sure that I have food
Mhm.
on the table. But I graduated and I remember, I think the only time that I was like emotional, whatever, when my son was gone, because I cried every day. So that really was hard for me. But when I graduated, I I remember going to my mom and saying, well, prom, I prepared for prom and I paid for everything. I paid for it. I had nobody pay for anything, paid for everything. And my mom was looking at me like, where are you going? You have a kid. And I'm like, well, he's taken care of, somebody's going to watch him while I go to prom. And then graduation, I got graduation tickets. And you know who showed up? Because my mom was like, well, I have to work, so I can't go to your graduation. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard. But my brother was there. My husband, well, boyfriend at the time was there. Like that was my support system. My brother continues to be my support system, my husband, and I have my little circle, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and of course I pour and I have poured into young teenagers' lives that are moms. And that was definitely something, because you could do it. You have the choices, you have the support, there are resources. I did it. No, I don't think anybody could step in my shoes and what I've been through.
No.
But I mean, I'm sure people have. But you know um yes, I'm definitely always talking to the young people, who are parents, and hey, be a support system for them and always be available, so that they need something, I'm here.
Mm-hmm. What I can say about you is that you do give people grace.
Yes.
We're
I
not
don't
gonna
think I don't think so much now, but
no,
yes, I have.
no, but when we were growing up, you gave people grace. And when we were growing up in adulthood, you gave people grace. Until, until, until. That's all we're gonna say. Until you couldn't anymore.
Yes.
I can remember, a couple of times like, nah, no, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Don't do it. Stop doing it. You know what I mean? But you gave people grace. You gave people grace. So I just want to let people know, if they are watching, if they are listening, she gave you grace. And if you no longer in her grace, it's because that was well deserved. All right.
I'm so kind. I love people, and I just believe people can change. But again, I will cut you off and not even
Yeah.
think twice about it.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah.
So now, forward a little bit. Um, I am now dealing with the abandonment of my father. My father abandoned the entire family, and you and Kevin were my support. I didn't have anybody else to talk to. You know what I mean? I just couldn't believe it. Um, what age were you when my dad married you guys?
That was in 2001. So I was, oh my God,
Right.
27, 28.
Okay. Mhm. So I mean, at that point, because I was 19 years old when that happened, to when he abandoned us, and then he came. He's back into the states because he left to go to live in Florida, and now he's back in the states. He's now remarried, and all of that. And this is not to talk bad about my father, but I'm seeing everything. I'm an observer. That's just kind of like what I do. And if it wasn't for the support that I got from you and Kevin, and just, oh my God, I just was devastated. I was hurt, but I was also very angry. And you didn't judge me. You didn't judge me. You understood, and you just matter of fact, there really wasn't a whole lot of talk about it, but you just was there for when I vented. You were just there when I needed, just to talk about it. And you would just let me, vent. Um, Now time has gone by, and now he's married you. And then um I was happy, like my dad was happy. We were just happy that he was in our existence again. Like, we were just so happy. So I was happy when he was delighted to marry you guys and
Well,
all
he
of that.
told me, remember, like when me and Kevin were dating and all that stuff. And, he told me one time, he said, when you guys get married, because you guys going to get married, I'm going to marry you. And he married us twice.
So he already prophesied. Well, I'll never forget it because you had a beautiful wedding. It was so beautiful. Probably another expense that you had to pay for. But I was just glad I was a part of it. Um, so to see you with your high school sweetheart, you know, even after the bad relationship that you had prior to him, to see you married, to see you have a home, like I just felt like you did all the steps right. You had laid the foundation for it. Like I said, you were the example. So I took a lot of my cues from you. I'm gonna keep saying that because I took a lot of my life cues from you. And I can't ever thank you enough for that. I know that was a sad part of my life. I know I keep going back to that. But I just appreciated just not being judged, not questioning the fact that he was a pastor and he did this, and how could he? And then I went so many years kind of like, okay, because I'm church hurt, because he had a church. I'm hurt because my dad hurt me. My dad, he was our pastor. He was somebody that I submitted to, you know what I mean? Like, and so church hurt isn't just, what about the church hurt when family members are, part of uh part of we were my mother and we were his support, in running the church and things like that. So um there's that type of hurt, like, and then to be bold and say to a congregation one day that, hey, we're not working out, we're going to get a divorce, and this will be the last Sunday. We weren't there at that point, we had resigned, but it was just to hear it afterwards, it kind of like just kind of echoed for many years
All of
after.
it, because I remember all of it, going to the house and just picking up the
Right.
pieces and
uh,
not
my,
knowing, your mom didn't work, and oh my God.
Right. It was devastating. Matter of fact, she was working, but she had just gotten a part-time job. 'Cause
Right,
she's been the homemaker.
right.
So I went and got a second job, and you know what I mean? That money was to give to my mom because I've got a car note. Now I'm helping with the bills at home. And then we just couldn't keep up with it. So we had to leave the house. There were so many, like the house was being eaten by termites. We had those type of problems. So it wasn't we didn't even have the funds to even afford to even fix the home, let alone stay in the home. So we had to go our separate ways, and I was 19 years old. And man, I remember moving.
Remember when you asked me, well, how much is the PSC&G bill, and how much is it? You trying
Yes.
to do a budget, and I was just like,
Yes.
girl, you'll get it. You'll get it. Just
I was, and
figure it out.
I was working, and I just wanted to make sure I can afford it, but I was very scared. And when I did move, I was well, where, I don't know. By the time when I moved, because you were only like 20 years old, I'm not sure if you were still in the gardens, or you. When did you get your home?
When I was 21, I was in the middle of buying it. So I was in the gardens
Okay,
from like
so
16 till
you
21.
right. So I didn't. I just asked him like, "Yo, where do you wash your clothes at?" Because
Right.
we have something here, but like, where do you wash your clothes at? Because at this point in time, we were spending a lot of time together, and so I brought my clothes. I was not prepared. I didn't have no quarters. I didn't have no soap. I'm like, okay, what do I do? It's basically what I did. And you talk. Matter of fact, I remember your face. You were just like, "Do you have detergent?" I'm like, what's that?
Right, right. I
My
remember.
ignorance will tell you I never washed clothes in my entire life. That means my mother did everything. I didn't even clean my own room. My mother did everything. I'd sleep in my bed in one way. When I came home, my whole room was made. That's just how my mother was. And so I will have to say I was not prepared for the adult life. Not at 19. And so I did go to you. I did not know how to do nothing, I let alone how to cook. And you were just so gracious to me. You did not. I saw it in your face because you were like taken back that I didn't know nothing, and I'm like, okay, so I don't know. She goes, I did have cash on me. He was like, well, you can get cash, like put the cash in, and you get the
Quarters.
coins,
Hmm.
and I didn't know how much I needed, and so she's like, okay, okay, okay. So you would tell me, I think you need about this amount. You need about this amount. I just remember you really taking your time, but you never once spoke about it. So I think I might. Did I bring this up on your 40th or something? Like
Yeah, I remember you talking about it a couple times.
I didn't know how to do nothing, but that's why I was saying like you were my big sister for real, for real. You didn't judge me. I didn't feel chastised, although I knew I stunned you, but
Well,
I did
you
not.
got to understand, for me, and
Right.
it wasn't normal for me to know those things. But again, a single dad, here it is. I'm 10, so I'm washing clothes, I'm folding clothes, and then on the weekends I would go see my mom, and she would have to go to the laundromat and all that stuff. So I had to. I learned it from her, but these
Hmm.
are things that maybe I shouldn't have known so young. So I was, by the time
Hmm.
20 hit, I'm like, I'm 10 years in.
Hmm.
Like,
10 years in, already doing it with your eyes closed, everything.
right, right.
But I learned that day. I think I had everything that I owned that day.
And you was a pro, because even Tuesdays was what, free dryer day. I was like, I'm
but
so
that
proud of you.
that was all to you because I wouldn't have known. So I would definitely go on Tuesdays and I made friends with the girl. Found out she was Ducky's sister. Like
Right,
we was family up
right.
in there.
Oh my God. I tell you.
I know some of the things I just wanted to share because I thought it would be nice to know that yeah, the sister girl didn't know nothing. Mm-mm. Lucky not. I'm lucky I knew how to boil some water.
Well, we all learn some point in time. Here it is.
Hmm.
I was so young. My mother was a mother that she didn't want nobody in the kitchen. My mom was a really great cook, and oh my God, her food was amazing. But, here it is when I moved into my, well, I mean, we kind of, I mean, I seen my mom after I had my son, but it wasn't like every weekend like I used to go or whatever. And it was just
Yeah.
like, it was hard because it was just like everybody was mad at me. Like, you would think that, I had my child at 15
Hmm.
and I was in that labor and delivery room by myself. My dad was like, well, he had surgery, and he was angry at me. So he was just like, well, I hope your mom could come. Call my mom. My mom was like, I ain't going. My sister was like, I'll be at the club and I'll be there before you have the baby. So I was by myself, 15. So anything could have happened. I could have died and nobody gonna know. But I didn't. Which, that really was tough. But I'll say, though my brother and my sister, they were, yeah, because my parents were not, they were so angry. My dad became an alcoholic because of this, and I'm like, sorry, I'm so sorry, but I mean, in time, our bond was back together again,
It
and
was. It was. And you
yeah,
then you were yeah. Then you were able to help him in the end and you know what
yes,
I mean? That was a beautiful thing. You really did take care of your father.
forgiveness, forgiveness,
Hmm.
forgiveness. So
And
here
then
it
he
is.
realized how awesome Kevin was, huh?
Oh my God. Amazing. Amazing. Different levels. I always say marriages are hard. You have to
Yeah.
learn. We went through things, but you know what? Everything became a strength. Like,
Yeah.
okay, But oh my God, that's my tag teammate, like,
Mhm.
different levels. So here it is. My dad was on hospice.
Mhm.
Um, I was gonna quit school because
Mhm.
I needed to be there for my dad. My husband looked at me in my face, was like, "You're not quitting. You're gonna graduate in a few months. You're not
Mhm.
quitting.
That's right.
I got it." And he had it. He had it. When my dad died, he cried. First time, well, second
Mm.
time that I seen him cry out of all the years we've been together. We've been together 30 plus years. But
Can't nobody
amazing,
say that. Can't nobody say that.
amazing, amazing,
No,
amazing.
they can't. I know they out there. Wow. Okay, so now that we put me on blast, now I'm in a domestic violence abusive relationship. You remember that?
Yes, very
And
clearly.
one of the things, because I just kept going. Like I didn't have to. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to do it, but like, this is me. I was rolling into one relationship after the other, and then like he was a rebound, and then I was dealing and stressing about my identity. Who's gonna want me now? Like 2 kids later by the same guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how I was just thinking. I was young. I was being dumb. Like, and then it's the verbal abuse started. When I got pregnant. Well,
Well,
it
don't
was
mention,
prior
you
to
can't
that.
be that hard on yourself because remember the abandonment of your father.
Right.
So
So
that plays a
exactly.
big part of it. So you're looking for love in all the wrong places.
That's true. And then going back to, well, let's go back because I had went back with the girl with Tamara's, my oldest father, and then we had, Tierra, and then right before I had Tierra, you was my
Oh my God.
you was my ride or die. I
Always.
was like, I found out he cheated on me. This is it with the same girl, like all through high school that we had it. I cannot believe it. And I know she's pregnant. That's all I kept thinking to myself. Like, I know she's pregnant. And you came over to my house. You picked me up. We packed all of his things. We threw it when we drove. Matter of fact, we drove to her house and said, "Hey, I'm just here." I was being nonchalant about everything. I'm like, "Here, I'm just trying to drop off his clothes, since you want to be with him so bad." And she's just like, "No, no, no, don't leave that here. Don't leave them clothes." I said, "Why not? Why you don't want his clothes? Because he's not coming back with me. He's been with you for the last 3 days." She's like, "No, no, no, no. What do we do? We drove all the way to Princeton. All the way to Princeton. He had me sitting in front of I was at the KFC's register, and he had me sitting there like this, waiting for me to talk to him because I ain't seen him in 3 days. Before we did that, we threw all his stuff in the dumpster.
I don't confirm or deny.
Okay, all right, you didn't help me. I did that. I did that. I threw all of his things in the dumpster. You looked at that though. You were there. I threw everything in the dumpster. That's how angry I was. And then and then henceforth the rest is history. I got over that, and then I'm
But we're
now.
going to highlight an important part of that day.
Go ahead.
You went into labor
I
because of
did.
all the stress.
I did.
And your baby was not breathing and you
Yeah.
didn't know that. And I said to you in the hospital room, all of this stress
Mhm.
may have taken your baby.
Mhm.
And that I was upset. I was angry because I was just like, this is what stress does. This is what
Mhm.
stress does.
Mhm.
That I think about when women are going through a stressful
Unnecessary.
period, and I'm like, no, listen, everything's small. Don't because it's that
Mhm.
was hard to watch, and then
Mhm.
to keep you out of the loop. Me and your mom were like,
Mhm.
oh my
Yeah,
god,
because the umbilical cord was wrapped around Tia's neck.
because of all
Mhm.
the stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely.
Um. So we're over that, but now I jumped into another relationship where it ended up being it started out verbally abusive. Um. I'm now pregnant with my third child, my son, with him, and little by little, I was isolating myself, not even realizing I was doing it. And um, he tried to get us to stop being friends because that's just how he was. He just didn't want. He was controlling. He was obsessive. I almost lost my job because the amount of times he would just call my job, cuss me out, hang up. Like, why did I go through all of that? I'm in an apartment that's in my name, not in his name. Like, why am I sharing an apartment with somebody? Like, he's not paying the bills. Like, why did I do all of that? But when you're in it, just like you said, you know what I mean? I was dealing with the abandonment issue. I was like, I have to try to make this work. And now I'm pregnant with a third child. Like, you know what I mean? And it just got to be so like he just tried to like mess up what we had, that you had to put a boundary. And
Yes.
you had to tell me, listen, if you're gonna be with him, you're gonna be with him. I cannot be. He's not gonna destroy what I have going on here. He's not good for you. If you don't want to listen, that's on you. I will be here when you're ready, but it
Well,
can't be with him. Go ahead, go
rewind
back.
that a little bit because he wasn't in, because of the stuff that he would do and all that stuff. I was just like, I don't want to be nowhere near him.
Hmm.
Now he showed up to a birthday party, one of my kids' birthday party. Well,
Uninvited.
uninvited, and I had said that I didn't want him here. So he showed up, you went outside, and all I seen was him put his hands on, grab you. I saw fire, I saw blood, and I went after the car.
Hmm. Hmm.
And after that, I was like, I cannot be this angry and mad,
Hmm.
especially in front of the kids or whatever. I can't. I hated to see you go through that. So that was probably the only time I was like, listen,
Hmm.
either
It was the only time, but then not too much longer after that. It was done. I left. I literally left everything that I owned, just to get away from him. And even though wherever I went didn't last too long, we ended up being homeless. But and this is just for people's knowledge, that I was living in Burlington County at the time, and so they had support for families, that were homeless, and they worked with other churches. So once a week we would live or stay at a church. They had classrooms. They Sometimes we were divided by cubicles and stuff like that, but then there was times where we just had our own classroom to ourselves. And that's how, like, and the purpose of the program was for you to save all of your money so they could help you move into your apartment. They will provide the first, months, whatever they needed for security deposit. They will provide you with furniture. It was just an amazing program to go through. And the kids, they were so young that they hardly remember it, but the things that they do remember, we just thought we was, you know, um, moving from place to place because it was a fun activity that we were doing. Because you become creative on some of the things that you say and do, and then they had other thing outlets for the kids, and so it didn't seem like we were homeless. I still had a vehicle. I still got them around to their daycare, to their school, things like that. So it didn't seem like we were homeless, but I was willing to do it to get away from him.
right.
And then, I was able to come right back into your grace.
I
And
remember.
and we were, but I needed a push, because when somebody is constantly saying, I just don't know how, you gotta wait for that person to act. You did as much as you could. You supported me as much as you could, but when it started to get to the point where it was messing with your mental health, you had to put a boundary, and I don't fault you for that. I never did. Matter of fact, it might have broke my heart, but that was one of the things. You were important to me. Your family was important to me. You were a very much part of my life. This guy just came a year ago. Like, I was fine. I just had to get to a place, first of all, financially, because a lot of people stay because it's financial, but that wasn't my case. I was financing everything. He
Right.
wasn't giving me anything. The most that he was doing was probably babysitting my kids, and providing food because he had to eat and live there too. But not to say that he didn't do much of anything, but how much help are you being if you're taking care of my one child that I just had, and you kind of, you know, uh you kind of wanted to be a father to her, but not to my oldest, who was only 8 at the time.
That was another reason why I couldn't sit back and watch, because there was a certain situation that I saw, and it made me angry, and I wanted to go
Mhm.
after him, and I was like, I cannot sit here and watch this treatment
Mhm.
of this child. He's the way that he's treating her. And I mean, and here it is, I someone that experienced domestic violence, and then
Right.
they see their loved one in it. I was young also. You're supposed to support them or whatever, but I just could not sit there and just watch it. So
No,
I
and
remember
I don't
just being
blame
so
you at
angry with
all.
you.
I don't blame you at all, and I do talk about domestic violence in a way where I think it's important that uh even if you have to be some sort of support from a distance, I just respected what you said. I've always been a person, if you say something to me once, it doesn't take me twice to understand where someone is. I respect it. Just like I respect the fact that when I got pregnant, that hey, I guess I'm gonna have to, like, um resign from being a pastor, and then to find out how relieved he was because he didn't have to. I respected his opinion of me, but I'm gonna show you now. Like, I have to. Those are things that kind of help me along the way to make better decisions for myself. If
Right.
I if I if In order for me to have the relationship that I have with you, I had to get rid of him, but I didn't know how. So that was the things I had to work out, and it came through. Like, I was able to get rid of him. Uh, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, that was a call. See what I'm saying? We're not going to make this much longer, but I do I would just, again, I wanted people to see inside of my life, because I don't talk about these parts. You know what I mean? These intricate parts of my life that I think are very important to share. I'm a person that's been talking about my trauma. And we're kind of like leading towards that. Like, before I even now I'm making better choices for myself. Now what I mean, I'm just focusing on God right now. I start going to church, and then I remember, I'm dedicated to church. I'm serving in church. I said, let me. The Lord kept tugging on my heart to speak to you guys, and I went to see you. And then and I was just like, I had to tell you what was on my heart. And it was almost like I was on a mission to just to be a witness to you guys. And it was funny because Kevin was just like, I just told her, and that's coming over. I don't know if it, like, do you remember when he said that?
Hmm.
Yeah. Kevin has this sixth sense or something. Like, he knows when anytime I was getting ready to come, like, we had some distance between us, as far as, like, because I was trying to get my life together and all that other stuff. But then it was like he had told you I was coming, and when I came with just to be a witness. And then you guys came to church, and the rest is history. You started going to church. Now you serving in a church. Now
Right.
you, I mean,
Definitely.
to do a 360 the way that I did, and to owe it all to the Lord, is something amazing for me. You know what I mean? Because I had come from being provided for, and then being abandoned, to, you know what I mean, trying to deal with my identity. And did I ever share to you in our childhood that I was being molested or anything like that?
I found that out when a cousin, you seen a cousin And
Hmm.
it brought back everything,
It
and you
did.
shared that with me.
So even back then, I shared it with you, but I had carried that. That was at 17 years old, and I carried that for another 5 or 6 years before I sat my parents down to ask them if it really had happened, because I remembered all these memories.
Right.
And so, and I talk about that in my journey, and we won't go there because I talk about that a lot. But I did confide in a friend um, when it happened, when I got the download. So I just didn't remember that part. A lot of some things are a little hazy, but now that um, I meet my Boaz, and it was important that I got y'all opinions of him, and it was important that my mentor at the time, had an opinion of him, and then I get married. And what happened? I told my father I just wanted him to walk me down the aisle,
Mm.
right? Um, I just that's all I wanted him to do. And the offense that he had, and this is not to talk bad about my dad, but this is the first time I'm actually talking about it out loud. Well, of course, but the offense that he had, and so we're at the dinner, and I know you could see at the practice, the dinner rehearsal. And I don't know if you saw it, but he was just to himself, quiet, wasn't really talking much. And so, 2 months prior to me being married, I went to Papa Darrell, and um, we served in the cafe ministry. And I said, I don't know if my dad is taking the news about him walking me down the aisle. Would you do the honors in case he does not pull through? And this is 2 months prior. Never said anything to anyone, but just I needed to make sure that I had a backup. Then I thought everything was cool up until the point that we had rehearsal. And then the next day, what happened? I get the news that he's not coming because his wife got into a car accident.
I was there. We were
And
getting our makeup done.
which I understood completely, but I was told, she told him she was physically fine. You better go. That's your firstborn. You better go. He goes, no, I just want to be with you. And the makeup artist was there, and she had to keep touching up my makeup because I could not stop crying. I was unconsolable. But my team was there. You guys were there to support me through that mishap, and then it started to pouring rain. I'm like, oh, this is just so horrible. I couldn't have planned it on the worst day. And the wedding didn't start for 2 hours because I couldn't get for 2 hours because I couldn't get it together. But everybody stayed. When I got there, everybody stayed. I thank God. If you ever try to do things on your own for a big event like this, hire somebody that knows what they're doing. Remember Tiffany, rest in peace, Tiffany. She had everything under control. She made sure that she had the hors d'oeuvres at least out so that people were eating because she knew what was going on. She just took care of every detail. You had a migraine, and yet, you know what I mean? And back then, when you had your migraines, they were enough to just take you out for the entire week. But I thank God that you pushed through it, and we ended up having a great, successful event. But everybody that showed up, and you guys know who you are. Everybody who showed up for and supported me, I just thank you. It will never go unnoticed. You know what I mean? Whew. But now we're hitting some rocks. We're gonna fast forward, and now I find out that the love of my life was a pedophile. And I'm like,
I remember that phone call too.
I don't even know what to do with myself. I didn't even know what to do with myself. But I know you came over.
Like I
And you
said, I
kept
may
coming
be
over.
busy, right? I may be busy, but you call me and say I need you, I'm there.
I remember you having to watch Micah for me. Even prior to that, you used to watch Jasmine for me. Like anytime I ever needed you, Liz, you were there. You were there. You were there. You were there, and you were there to help me. You know what I mean? You kept encouraging me, and you kept, Pat. You got this. You got this. And anytime that I needed anything, I didn't even need. Like when I think about it, what I didn't need anything, but just you.
Hmm.
But you went over and beyond. Okay, let me explain this, because when I was going through what I was going through, I worked at the church. All right,
Mm,
at the church, at our church. And people who are didn't understand what was going on, they just saw his absence, was like, oh, I'm praying for you guys. And I used to be like, don't pray for him, pray for me. You don't know what he did to us, you don't know what he did to me. And so people obviously thought that there was some infidelity going on. No, it was far worse than that. But when people did started to find out, that was not the time for you to tell me, oh, I knew something was off about him. Like that was just the worst kind of information that I never needed to hear. And so I'm saying all this to say that be better. Be better. All right? You don't have to know what's going on, and if the person decides to tell you what's going on, that is not the time for you to have your reservations. You know what I mean? Cuz you didn't. I'm not going to blame you for not saying anything, but just keep that to yourself. Keep that between you and God, because I did not need to hear that. And
right.
then for those of you who said, "Let me know if you need help," I have 7 kids that I am now by myself. I don't want to have to go to you and say, "I need this."
Right.
And what I can say is that I didn't have to ask you. You already knew what I needed, and you just did it. I didn't, like, I'm barely surviving. I don't think people understood that I was barely surviving. I was barely mustering up words to say of how the treachery, the disappointment, and feeling that I could not remember. I kept saying, I don't trust myself. I would never. I'm that's it. That is it. I don't know what is it going to take for me to realize that this love thing ain't for me. Like I cannot trust myself. And I did not. I didn't want to. I didn't look at a man. I didn't want to talk to a man. I didn't nothing for like 7 years. And then now my kids are all adults. And it was because of them that said, you deserve to be happy. You gave us your life. Like so for your kids to have to say that just so that you can feel some sort of relief.
Right.
But the one thing Kevin said to me, because now we're talking about years after the treachery, and what happens in trauma, people who are dealing with trauma, the girls were dealing with trauma in a way that they were, one lost all mobility in her extremities. She had to learn how to walk all over again. You know what I mean? Like she on top of that being suicidal, on top of that having to live in a residential home, because of her behavior, the behaviors that she had developed, would have fallen out like seizures anytime she got stressed, because that's how she would hide. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't realize that she's doing these things, but she can't come out of it. And so I was dealing with that. Then I was dealing with the other, being walking around now having identity crisis, didn't know if she wanted to be gay, didn't know what she wanted to be, a boy. Like I didn't know how to deal with none of it. None of it. All I'm saying is just be the help. Just think about what it is you would need if you were in this type of situation, and don't expect the person to say, all right, when I come to you, because when I come to you and then you can't deliver, then why did you even bother?
Right.
And so I never went. I didn't even bother. I didn't even bother because I did not want to be. I don't want to be disappointed. Like I can be there for somebody else, 100% of the time, and this is the way that I grew up. That not to have an expectation for reciprocation of any of it. Like I did it out of my own free heart. Like I did it, and regardless whether you received it or whether you did nothing with it or you took from it or whatever, I did not expect anything in return. That's just what I did. And I had a hard time when people did want to give to me, besides you, because I trusted you. I just thought other people had their own motives because they want to know what's going on.
Right. Right.
So then you have to deal with that. So all just if you're listening in, just be a better person. Be in the know. Just do what you would want somebody to do for you without having to divulge any type of information when you know there is an issue. When you know that the church is supporting this young woman, because I was still working, I was still there, but and I'm trying to do everything with a smile on my face, but I was acting. I was acting. The only person that I could be vulnerable were with my family, with my mentor, and with you guys. That was it. I didn't trust anybody else with with the information. Now, I'm thank God I found, you know, therapy saved me because therapy did.
Say it
Um,
again. Say it again.
Therapy
Because a lot of
saved me. I'll never have an episode where I don't talk about therapy. Therapy saved me. Joanne, Joanne, you saved me. You saved me, and she's gonna be one of my special guests, my therapist. She's gonna be my special guest. She's agreed to come on, so that just to prove to y'all, I'm not lying when I come up here and I say some of the things that I've said. Like I'm not lying about any of it. I'm telling you guys the raw truth, and you want to know why? Because when I went through it, I didn't have anybody to rub shoulders with. I didn't know how to talk to anybody about some of the stuff that I went through in my childhood life. See, and as I was 17, I'm telling you, but these things happened to me years ago. It took so long, and then it takes a lifetime to really undo what life has thrown at you.
let's go back to it took
Hmm.
you a long time. Why do you think it took you a long time? Did you disclose this to your parents at that age and they didn't believe you?
No, it wasn't that at all. They
No,
believed me every time.
they believed you every time.
They believe me every time. It's just that they didn't have the resources to rehabilitate me.
Oh,
And I talk a lot about this because um it is so important that when your child divulge information that they have been assaulted, whether it's physically or sexually, it is your responsibility to make sure that they get the necessary treatment mentally. Perhaps had I had some counseling, I would have gotten some sort of education on what to look for, what strange behavior looks for. Because at that time we were thinking stranger danger. We weren't really thinking like it was
family.
immediate family. It was my dad was a pastor, so it was his assistant pastor that molested me. And how I became re-victimized because I just didn't have a sense of who I was. I didn't know what my purpose and what my place is and what I was allowed to say no to. Like I was never really shown. I'm just in an environment is you do as I say. That's it. There was no in between. Um I didn't have open communication with my family, so I didn't know what that looked like. And the only person I could, talk to was you. You know what I mean? I didn't really get along with too many girls. So it really was just you, Liz. It really was. Um I had my neighbors across the street that I was, close to, but to tell them like all of my intimate details of my life, that never even came. I never even thought to even think about it.
Right.
You know? But therapy saved my life, then poetry saved my life. I became a poet. I remember once I started writing, it was effortless, and one after the other, and then really putting all my emotions into all of it, and going back and thinking about the emotion that I felt when I found out, the emotions that I felt when I had the download at 17 years old, visiting a cousin who molested me, not realizing I, that I had been communicating with her, and the day I go there with my 3-year old daughter, because I was being molested from like 3 to 6. I remember that when I went to bed, that's when I remembered everything. And here I am, my 3-year old daughter, visiting her.
We have to do better as parents, because when I asked you that, what did your parents do? Um,
We stopped talking to
they
them for
believed
years.
you, but where were the resources? You're in a church. There's counselors at the church. There's resources out there, but because you don't want to expose. So again, the
Yes.
abandonment. So I'm not going to say nothing else. I'm just going to suppress this because
Yeah.
they believe me, but then nothing's getting done, and it's
Well,
hard. Parents, we got to do better. We got to listen to our kids. We got to believe our kids. We can't just sit there and there's so many things out there. There's so many resources out there. There's so many therapists out there. There's so many social workers. There's so many things that could be done. You
mm-hmm.
don't know what to do. Go to
Mm-hmm.
someone you trust and ask them. Google is free. But it just and it continues to happen. Although we have all these resources and all
That
this
part.
stuff at our hand, why are our babies still being
Mm-hmm.
molested and raped and assaulted? Stop letting your children go everywhere. Stop, bringing these men into the homes. Like it's, we gotta be smarter. We gotta be smarter.
Well, I am. Now I am. Like I have to be. Like I can't. I can't. I don't. I, on the conference, my word for the day was self control, and I had to learn by I had to learn a lot of things, and in that message that I was talking about was that um I can't just run on an impulse just because you want to be my friend. I can't run on an impulse um, that every time somebody disappointments, I run to food. Like you have to learn some sort of self control in the people you allow in your environment, and if they're not good for you, you have to. You can't be there's no more. I cannot operate in on an impulse. I cannot do that. It'll hurt me in the end. And so um why am I bringing that up? I think I was trying to go in another direction and I'm kind of like losing thought here, but you do have to go back to making sure that your kids, they're your responsibility, and you also have to there is too much resources out there, but because it continues to happen, that's why I'm advocating. That's why I'm just thankful that you were able to come on and you know just to chat with me and to kind of expose some of the things that you went through, because you have a lot to offer. um your domestic violence, I feel like it's not just for today's story. Like you have a story to tell. You got books in you, girl. Like
Absolutely. They're coming.
um
They're
I'm not
coming.
I'm not surprised. But yeah, they did believe me, Liz. They did. They believed me, but at the time, I don't feel like they did ask me, did I want counseling when I was 12 years old? And I said, I never wanted to speak about this again. But you have to realize that your kids don't know any better. And because it does make them feel dirty, it does make them feel like I felt like, you know what I mean? Like, because after this happened and after it was exposed, they ended up dividing the church and taking half the church with them. So
Right.
that's even.
But what happened to that assistant pastor? My dad would have went and shot him. No, you know what I mean? Like it's just. I mean, I say that and I'm joking. However, you know,
Yeah.
as kids, we're like, you're supposed to protect us. And I
It's
mean,
true.
even for me as a mom, things happen to my children being grown, whatever, and
Hmm.
they come to me and I'm like, what I would do is, but that's not the right thing to do. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it's
Sure.
just so many, I don't know, different things. But the church was separated. So was a conversation ever had? Like, I just don't. I'm
No,
not
no, the
a person.
conversation was never had. And then there was a time where my mom was visiting the church, knowing what he had did. But she said she felt that she had a mission, and that mission was to end up actually talking to him. She did address him. You know what I mean? And so I'm finding out years later that my dad did say something to him, but it was one of those things. Well, I believe my daughter, but you you know what I mean? Like you didn't.
But how many, because of our actions sometimes,
I don't know.
that we just kind of, let me have this conversation. How many other kids, because he's not in jail? How many kids, because there was no charges and he wasn't exposed? We got to,
Well,
right.
it did happen again, or it was attempting to happen again, and that person exposed them, and then there we go. It was exposed that he has a problem, but I don't know if it went any further than that. I did find out that he did try, but that should have just been a red flag for everybody. Now and he's somebody that I haven't addressed yet, or I haven't been able to address yet, but I believe it's coming.
Mm.
So, but that's not what's driving me. What's driving me is my testimony and how I lived through it and how I survived it. Um, and today, again, let's just go back to the fact that I really am highlighting this young lady in my life. She's like my big sister, you know what I mean? My biggest supporter. She's been, besides God being my rock, the other side of the rock, like she was there for me. And I owe her everything. I owe her just her flowers. I owe her, being a better friend, all of that. And I love you, Liz. We could probably talk for another 3 hours, but we're gonna cut it short because I did as best as I could to kind of like get everybody into our journey of how how you were there every step of the way, how I needed you. Um, I needed someone, and I'm so grateful that God sent me you, or you that you were you were what I needed. And if you have you one of these friends, like I have this friend, don't let them go. Don't let them go, and be just as much a part of their part of their life as they are to yours. Don't let it be one sided. That's important. Um,
I want to
you
say
know.
a good friend is there for you no matter what. They don't
Uh,
judge you, they
mhm.
don't put you down, and
They do
don't.
tell you the truth, though.
They tell you the truth, and
Tell
but
you the
they
truth.
don't. They may hurt you, but they don't do it deliberately.
No,
Like
they're
I
not there
remember,
to
I
hurt.
just go back to that conversation that I had because I remember calling you stupid, and I'm like, oh, but
I didn't
that
hold you to it because I knew you didn't mean it. We've
yeah,
already built a relationship from 12 years old, and now I'm 24. So I didn't allow that. Like, let's be for real. We're gonna say things that are truthful, that may hurt our feelings. I might have been hurt, but it was the truth. I knew it. I knew it. I knew I was being stupid. Like, just my actions. I didn't take it personal. That's the thing. I didn't take it personal because I knew it was coming from a place, because you care about me. You love me. You know what I mean? I did not take that personal. And so when you get yourself one of these friends, one of those friends, like what they say to you doesn't offend you because you know what they're saying is true, you know? So, I mean, that's kind of it for today.
we got so much more, Lord. We got
We
so much
do. But listen, because of your background in domestic violence, that's coming up very soon. I want to have you back as a panelist. So please don't say no to me, and we'll figure out a date and time for the conference. Yes, it's gonna be a conference.
more.
So
And I'll say this again, National Domestic Violence. If you're experiencing
That's right.
domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233.
All right, y'all. That's it for today.
All right, love you, girl.
All right, this is my friend, my bestie, my childhood best friend will always be my best friend, my big sister, my road dog, everything. That's Liz,
Hey,
a.k.a.
y'all.
Liz. I see a couple people from school, Liz, that are on here.
Oh, Lord, we told our secrets.
We did, but that's all right. They're gonna understand it now. Okay, that's why y'all was crazy. All
That's why I
right,
think
just stay behind the scenes for a second.
that. Okay.